Look, before I say another word, we need to get one thing straight. What I'm about to tell you isn't a simple gossip or an internet theory. This is absolutely not about a personal vendetta or obsession. What you are going to hear in the next few minutes comes directly from California family court filings, bankruptcy law specialists, and child welfare advocates who have been monitoring this case for months. And believe me, the picture is truly devastating. When a parent files for bankruptcy in California while involved in custody disputes, the court activates extraordinary powers that most people can't even imagine. Powers to investigate living conditions, financial stability, and whether children are being used as assets in fraudulent schemes. And right now, Meghan Markle has triggered every single one of these red flags simultaneously. $2.10 million. That is the figure Meghan allegedly spent on Archie and Lilibet's so-called security and care in 2023 alone. This information is based on documents that were accidentally leaked to the public during a routine court filing error last week. But here is the real bombshell that nobody is telling you. California Child Protective Services, CPS, has opened an actual file investigating whether these children are living in a safe, stable environment, or if they are being used as props in a financial fraud scheme. eBay covered royal stories for 30 years. I knew Diana, I watched William and Harry grow up. eBay seen scandals, divorces, custody battles. But what is happening right now with Archie and Lilibet is something I never thought eBay witness. Because this isn't about two parents having a disagreement. This is about whether those children actually exist in the way we've been told, whether they are being exploited for financial gain, and what happens when a California bankruptcy court starts asking questions that the Sussexes absolutely cannot answer. Stay with me, because the evidence is jaw-dropping. By the end of this video, you will understand why Harry has been frantically calling his father begging for help, why Meghan has hired 3 separate family law attorneys in the past month, and why Buckingham Palace has gone completely silent. First, let me start by explaining what legally happens when someone with minor children files for bankruptcy in California, because this is crucial to understanding the coming storm. Under the California Bankruptcy Code, when you file for Chapter 7 or Chapter 11, you must disclose all assets. Everything. Bank accounts, properties, vehicles, jewelry, investments, and yes, any financial instruments or trust funds held in your children's names. You must also disclose all sources of income, including any money earned through your children's images, names, or likenesses. Here is where it gets messy for Harry and Meghan. These children have appeared in Netflix documentaries. Their names have been trademarked. Their images have been sold to media outlets. According to entertainment law experts eBay spoken with, Archie and Lilibet have generated approximately $6.7 million in direct and indirect revenue since their births. Under California law, that money should be held in Coogan Accounts. These are special block trust accounts designed to protect child performers' earnings. The law requires that 15% of all earnings from any commercial use of a child's image must be deposited directly into a blocked account that the parents cannot touch until the child turns 18. Guess what? There is no evidence that Archie or Lilibet have Coogan accounts. Noni. I had a researcher spend 3 weeks searching California court records, trust registrations, and financial disclosures. Nothing exists. So, where did that $6.7 million go? Allegedly, it went into Archwell accounts, personal accounts, spent on private jets, designer clothes, and the Montecito mansion. The children's earnings were allegedly treated as Harry and Meghan's personal income. That is illegal. Staggeringly, obviously, and criminally illegal. And when the bankruptcy trustee starts going through their finances, which is happening right now, this will be discovered immediately. And when it is discovered, California Child Protective Services gets involved automatically. Because using your children's earnings for your personal lifestyle isn't just fraud, it is financial abuse of minors. But wait, it gets so much worse. Let me tell you about something called a fraudulent transfer. In bankruptcy law, if you move assets around to hide them from creditors, those transfers can be reversed. The trustee can claw back money that was improperly moved, even years after the fact. Now, let's look at what we know about Meghan's financial movements in the past 2 years. In March 2023, she established something called the Lilibet Diana Trust. It's registered in Delaware, a state known for privacy in trust matters. Very little information is publicly available, but what we do know is troubling. According to sources who've seen the trust documents, substantial assets were moved into this trust, properties, gas, and potentially even intellectual property rights. And the stated beneficiary is Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor. On the surface, this looks like a mother protecting her daughter's inheritance. But bankruptcy lawyers you've consulted say this has all the hallmarks of a fraudulent transfer. Moving assets into a child's name to shield them from creditors while you continue to benefit from those assets is textbook fraud. And it is the smoking gun. The Montecito Mansion's title was allegedly partially transferred to this trust in August 2023, right when their financial situation was collapsing, right when they would have known bankruptcy was becoming inevitable. If that's proven, if a judge determines that Meghan moved assets into Lilibet's name to hide them from creditors, those assets get clawed back. But more importantly, it raises a massive question. What kind of mother uses her 3-year-old daughter as a shield in a bankruptcy fraud scheme? The California Family Court doesn't look kindly on that kind of behavior. Neither does CPS. Now, let's talk specifically about custody, because California has very particular laws about this. When parents are involved in bankruptcy, when there are questions about financial fraud, and when there is evidence of using children for commercial gain, the court can appoint an independent guardian ad litem. That's a lawyer whose only job is to represent the children's interests, not the parents'. According to multiple sources, a guardian ad litem was appointed for Archie and Lilibet in Noviembre de 2024. Just 3 weeks ago. This hasn't been reported anywhere. The filing was sealed, but it happened. And what does a guardian ad litem do? They investigate everything. Where the children actually live, who takes care of them, what their daily lives look like, whether they are being properly cared for, whether they are being exploited, and whether their parents are fit. They interview teachers, doctors, nannies, neighbors. They review financial records. They examine how the children's images have been used commercially. And then they report to the judge with recommendations. If they determine that the children are being used as financial instruments, that their welfare is being compromised by their parents' reckless behavior, they can recommend anything from supervised visitation to removal of custody entirely. Why would a guardian ad litem be appointed? They are only brought in when there are serious concerns, abuse, neglect, or in this case, financial exploitation. Someone complained. Someone raised red flags. And the court took it seriously enough to assign independent legal representation to those children. Who complained? You have sources who say it came from within the household, former staff members who were fired, who saw things that troubled them, and who went to authorities with specific allegations about how Archie and Lilibet are actually living. Let me tell you what they allegedly reported. And I want to be clear, these are allegations from people who were there, who worked in that house, who saw the day-to-day reality. First, the children are rarely seen in public because Meghan allegedly controls every image, every appearance, every photo opportunity. Not for their privacy or safety, but to monetize their scarcity. The less people see them, the more valuable each appearance becomes. One former nanny speaking anonymously to authorities allegedly stated that Meghan would sometimes keep the children inside for weeks at a time, then suddenly organize elaborate photo shoots or appearances when money was tight or publicity was needed. That's not parenting. That's management. Those children are being treated like assets to be deployed strategically. Second allegation, the famous security concerns, the $2.1 million spent on their safety in 2023. Most of that money didn't go to actual security. It went to NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, forcing anyone who comes into contact with the children to sign away their right to ever speak about what they see. Nannies, drivers, doctors, teachers, housekeepers, everyone who interacts with Archie and Lilibet must sign these agreements. Why? If everything is normal and healthy, what is there to hide? One security expert I spoke with said it plainly, you don't spend millions on NDAs unless you're hiding something you desperately don't want public. Third allegation, and this is where it gets truly disturbing. Multiple staff members have reported that Meghan's behavior toward the children changes dramatically depending on whether cameras are present. When photographers are around, when documentaries are being filmed, when there is commercial value, Meghan is the picture-perfect mother, attentive, affectionate, engaged. But when the cameras disappear, staff members allegedly describe her as distant, disinterested, and frustrated by their presence. One former employee stated that Meghan once said, quote, "I didn't go through all this to be stuck at home with children. That's what nannies are for." If true, and I emphasize if, that reveals something dark about her motivations. Those children weren't wanted for themselves. They were wanted because royal babies have value. They generate interest, sympathy, and content opportunities. But the reality of actually raising them? That's delegated to staff, while Meghan focuses on her brand. Contrast this with how William and Catherine raise their children. Yes, they have help. Every royal family has staff, but those children are seen regularly at school, at events, at church. They interact with family. They have normal routines. Their parents are visibly engaged in their lives. George, Charlotte, and Louis aren't hidden away. They're not paraded out only when convenient. They're raised as real children with real relationships. Archie and Lilibet, we've seen a handful of times in years. Carefully controlled images, professional photo shoots, Netflix content. Never candid, never spontaneous, never just living normal children's lives. That's not protection. That's exploitation. And California family courts are starting to ask why. Let me tell you about the specific legal mechanism that could destroy Meghan's custody claims. It's called the California Child Welfare Best Interest Standard. Under this statute, courts must consider multiple factors when determining custody, including financial stability, evidence of using children for commercial gain, and most importantly, whether a parent is providing a stable, consistent home environment. If the bankruptcy reveals massive debt, if the fraudulent transfers are proven, if evidence shows the children have been commercially exploited without proper legal protections, Meghan fails on all three counts: financial stability, they are bankrupt; commercial gain, $6.7 million in undocumented earnings from the children's images; stable environment, a mother allegedly using her daughter's name to hide assets from creditors. The judge could rule that those children would be better off in a stable environment. And guess what? The stable alternative is the royal family, specifically Harry's family in Britain. Under international custody law, particularly the Hague Convention which both the US and UK have signed, if the court determines that children are being harmed or exploited in one country, they can be returned to family members in another country who can provide proper care. King Charles is the children's grandfather. William is their uncle. They have family in Britain who are financially stable, who live in protected royal residences, who can provide education, security, and most importantly, a normal family life away from commercial exploitation. The California court could theoretically award custody to the royal family and order Harry to return to Britain with the children. Can you imagine? After everything Harry and Meghan have done, after all the interviews trashing the royals, after Spare, after Oprah, after Netflix, those children could end up being raised at Kensington Palace. The irony would be spectacular. The karma would be poetic. The humiliation would be complete. Now, where is Harry in all this? Because here's the truly tragic part. Harry is realizing far too late what he's gotten himself into. Sources close to the situation say Harry has been trying to quietly establish himself as the primary caregiver. He's been staying home more, reducing travel, being photographed with the children when possible. Why? Because his lawyers have told him that when this divorce happens, and it will happen, his only chance of maintaining custody is proving he was the stable, present parent while Meghan was busy with business ventures and spending sprees. But here's his problem: he enabled all of it. He stood by while Netflix filmed his children. He participated in commercializing their images. He signed off on using their names for content. He is complicit in everything Meghan has done. A California family court judge isn't going to see him as the innocent victim. They're going to see two parents who exploited their children for profit and now face consequences. And with Harry's visa situation in America still unresolved, with questions about whether he lied on his immigration forms about drug use, there's a very real possibility he could be deported. If that happens, if Harry is deported and Meghan maintains custody in California, he'll become a long-distance father. Video calls and supervised visits twice a year. Exactly what he accused the royal family of wanting to do to him. The pattern is repeating. Everything Harry ran from, everything he claimed to fear is happening anyway, just in California instead of London. But here's what really breaks my heart about this situation. Archie and Lilibet are innocent. They didn't ask for any of this. They didn't ask to be born into this chaos, to have their images sold, to have their names trademarked, to be used as pawns in their parents' commercial ventures and bankruptcy schemes. They're 5 and 3 years old. They should be going to school, playing with friends, learning to ride bikes, doing normal child things. Instead, they're hidden away in a Montecito mansion, surrounded by staff forced to sign NDAs, trotted out for cameras when their mother needs content while their parents' financial empire collapses around them. What happens when Meghan and Harry lose the house? When the bankruptcy court liquidates assets? When they're forced to downsize to something they can actually afford? What happens when the divorce goes through and custody battles begin? When lawyers are arguing in court about who gets the children for holidays, who pays for what, whether they should be raised in America or Britain? What happens when those children are old enough to Google their parents and read about the financial fraud, the commercial exploitation, the bankruptcy, the custody battles? When they discover they were used as commodities instead of being loved as children. The damage being done right now is incalculable, and it was entirely preventable. If Harry had stayed in Britain, if he'd maintained his role as a working royal, those children would be growing up as Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, protected, secure, part of a family that survived for 1,000 years. Instead, they are assets in a bankruptcy case and subjects of a CPS investigation. Let me tell you what I think happens next, because I've seen patterns like this before, and they always end the same way. Within the next 2 months, the bankruptcy trustee will complete their investigation. They'll discover the fraudulent transfers, the missing Coogan accounts, the commercial exploitation. They recommend criminal referrals for fraud. Simultaneously, the Guardian and Litem will file their report. If it's negative, if they recommend custody changes, Meghan will fight it. She'll claim persecution, racism, bias, all the usual deflections. But California family courts don't care about celebrity or status. They care about children's welfare. And if the evidence shows those children have been exploited, Meghan loses. Harry, seeing the writing on the wall, will try to position himself as the responsible parent. He'll potentially testify against Meghan's business practices, throw her under the bus to save himself. That destroys the marriage completely. Divorce proceedings accelerate. The custody battle becomes vicious. Meanwhile, the royal family watches from London, silent, patient, waiting. Because they know something Harry and Meghan don't. They know that eventually, inevitably, those children will need stability. And when California courts determine that neither Harry nor Meghan can provide it, when they look for stable family alternatives, there's really only one option. The children go to Britain, to their grandfather the king, to their uncle William, to Kensington Palace, where they can grow up protected, educated, and loved. Not as commercial assets, as royal children. Harry can go with them, return to Britain, rebuild his relationship with his family, or he can stay in America, watching his children be raised by the institution he spent years attacking. Either way, Meghan loses. She never returned to Britain. She's too hated there, the public would never accept her. So, she either loses the children to Harry and the royals, or she fights and proves in court that she's exactly what everyone has said all along, a manipulator who used those children for profit. The Queen saw this coming. She warned Harry before she died. Your children will pay the price for your choices, she told him. He didn't listen. He thought love conquered all. He thought Meghan was worth burning every bridge. Now his children are paying exactly as the Queen predicted. This is the real tragedy of the Sussex saga. Not that Harry and Meghan failed, not that they're going bankrupt. Not even that their marriage is ending. The tragedy is that 2 innocent children are caught in the middle, used, exploited, hidden, and now potentially at the center of custody battles and bankruptcy proceedings that will define their entire childhoods. Archie and Lilibet deserved better. They deserved parents who put their welfare first, who protected them from exploitation, who provided stability and love without commercial considerations. Instead, they got Harry and Meghan. And now they'll pay the price for their parents' ambition, greed, and recklessness. When this custody battle explodes into public view, when the court documents are unsealed, when the allegations become public record, remember this, I told you it was coming. I've been warning about this for years. Those children are not props. They're not assets. They're human beings who deserve protection, stability, and parents who actually put their needs first. California is about to decide if Harry and Meghan are capable of providing that. And based on the evidence, I don't think they are. So, tell me in the comments, am I wrong? Am I being too harsh? Or is this exactly what you've been thinking watching this disaster unfold? Because I genuinely want to know what you think about parents who allegedly spent $2.1 million on security and NDAs while exploiting their children's images for profit. Now, if you've made it this far, you need to stay subscribed because what I'm revealing next is even more explosive. The next video is going to expose exactly what happens when King Charles finally steps in. There are conversations happening right now between Buckingham Palace and the California courts that nobody knows about. Legal mechanisms being prepared, options being considered, and what I've discovered about Charles's plan for his grandchildren is genuinely shocking. So, hit that subscribe button right now, click the bell because when that video drops, you're going to want to see it immediately. And share this everywhere. Send it to anyone who still defends Harry and Meghan. Send it to anyone who thinks I'm being unfair. Because the more people understand what's really happening to those children, the harder it becomes for anyone to cover it up. Subscribe, bell, share. The custody battle is here, the children's welfare is at stake and the truth is finally coming out. Everything I predicted is happening. Those children are the victims and California is about to decide their fate.